Welcome back to my channel, and my name is April Thomas. This is Book Tea and Drama, where we talk about books. I should be talking about some teas, and we talk about the drama. Um, I haven't talked about the Shanquella case in a while because all the evidence that there is, everything that's already come out, um, and the way that our government has handled it, which is not surprising but heartbreaking. It really makes it hard to make videos with new content without it sounding like a lot of speculation. But with all that being said, one thing I did want to talk about concerning Shankola's case is revenge and street justice. So that's what we're going to be talking about in this video, and some things that I've learned along the way. So let's just get into it. First, I want to start talking about, first of all, this is my second time recording this. The first time I recorded this video, for whatever reason, my audio didn't record, and I went on for like an hour and recorded nothing. So this is my second time doing this. But what I wanted to talk about is this morning. As you know, for those of you who listen to my other videos, I talk about how I may have mentioned how I play the Bible as I sleep. I use the Bible experience, and I play it in my AirPods, and I let it play all through the night as I sleep. And what this does is I wake up every morning feeling pretty good. Um, and I learned a lot of things along the way. After I had made the last Tranquilla video, and I was getting ready, and I did another one, and I was getting ready to do this another one, and then that's when the thing with the case came out where they pretty much closed her case. It, which is the amount of evidence, but what and that was just really hard for me to swallow. It was really hard for me to swallow. So I kind of did shut down, and I had to shift my focus. So I started to focus on finishing a book that I was working on, titled Forbidden. This book is about a Native American man and a Black American woman, and how their love and unity, uh, how they use their love and unity to start to plant the seeds for change, right? Um, Without getting too much into it, I didn't know how to end the book. I hit a wall and I didn't know how to end the book. And I had, at this time, I was listening to the Bible in my sleep, and I decided, you know what? Um, Taking instructions from in the Bible, I said, I'm gonna put everything, put God first in everything. And I'm going to go take this to God. God cares about everything. Even if we think it's a little problem, He doesn't care about, He cares about it because it bothers us. He cares about us, right? So I prayed and I said, I don't know how to end this book. Um, and I prayed. So I went to sleep that night, put my AirPods in, and I came across this one part in the Bible. It's like sometime early in the morning, I woke up to hearing the actor for the voice of God having a conversation with one of his prophets. And it's kind of weird because at this point I had listened to the Bible. I've been doing this for a couple months now, and I had never heard this part in the Bible. It is in the Bible. I had just never woke up to hear this part. So this is something that had been playing when I was knocked out. So God was having a conversation with his prophets, and he said, I'm going to burn this, burn this place down. He said he was going to burn it down to the point where and erase all the memory, like there's going to be nothing left, so that so my children would not remember they wouldn't even remember these other deities. So they wouldn't remember these other gods and idols that they were worshiping, that have no memory of it. And the more and more you study this, you also learn in the beginning of Genesis, God did code. If for those of you who actually study the Bible, It's code. And when I say code, I mean like coding, like when you build a program for your computer. It is coding. God coded, for example, he coded the earth in, let's just say the earth is your blank screen where you write all your coding in, right? And what he did first is he coded that, like, okay, so that's like the earth. Okay, so I want the earth to be round. I want it to have clouds. I want it to you know, have a sky and water and blah. He coded that in. And with the reason why I say it's coding, because it also goes into, if this happens, the code, then this happens. And so example, if it rains, grass is to grow. Plants and trees are, are to grow, right? That's all coding. We think we come up with something new, we don't. There's nothing, literally Solomon said it, there's nothing new under the sun. He's absolutely right. There's nothing we're coming up with that's new. So I say all that because this all that I'm saying, don't think I'm just rambling on. It all ties back into Shanquella and why we don't have justice for her, but also how we can get justice, not just for Shanquella, but for everyone. So, um, going back to the coding. So basically, if X happens, Y happens. If A happens, B happens. If B happens to D happens, then C happens. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, if there's always a cause and effect. It's coding, just like when they build a program, just like when they build an app. You know, God coded Earth. Earth was without form. He coded it to be the shape, that's whatever shape it's in, because I know that's another argument, but whatever shape it's in, God coded that. Anyway, moving on. Um, I also came across, and so going back to, I couldn't find a way to end the book. I in the argument, so his prophet said, like, oh, that's too harsh, God, to clean this earth off, to start all over, because God's saying, I'm going to clean it off and I'm going to start over. He was saying that's too harsh. It's too harsh. And God had said something else, and again he said it was too harsh. So God said, okay, I'm going to rise up the Chaldeans. I had to look up who the Chaldeans were. They're actually a kind of like a sect of the Babylonians, um, who actually later on dominated the Babylonians and became the Babylonians. But when God describes them, so look at it. Don't take color out of it. Look at the essence of the person, that spirit of those people, and this is what God is talking about. So these people, it comes down to, like, you could say, like the spirit of colonialism, how they enslave, they're cruel, um they just basically worship themselves, you know. It's just it's in the book Forbidden, because it becomes a conversation between two characters in the book. So um yeah, so they have that conversation. So he brings up how ruthless they are, and he says, okay, because they won't listen, and there has to be punishment, right? I'm going to rise up, and I'm just going to say Babylonians for short. I'm going to rise up the Babylonians against them, and that's what was done. Um, until they learn to come to me, until they learn to repent and stop worshiping these idols. You're worshiping things that are rocks and stones that have no, they can't do anything for you, like, or sometimes it's not even that. Sometimes it's you make yourself your own idol by self-worshiping yourself. You know what I mean? Like, you've made yourself your own idol. So things like that. And then of course the hell goes into the whole other idols, right? So until they learned to stop doing that, I'm going to send them after them. So when you look at, oh, well, let me finish. So then later on, there's another book called Zephaniah. Forgot the name of the first book that I read, but the other book, or I was listening to, then it's short. It's Zephaniah 3:19, and it's where God is saying that He is going to He's going to, um, you know, in short, basically what he's saying is, I'm going to heal you. I'm going to take you out of the lands that you're not supposed to be, or the lands that took you. Um, I'm going to rise you up and restore your wealth in front of those that oppressed you. So, who is he talking about? So, well, we know who he's talking about, but you know what I'm saying? So, I got the ending of my book through that. Like after that, I got up and I wrote that book. I finished it that day. And it was like 3 or 4 chapters and I finished it all that day. So that's why Forbidden is so important to me. All my books are important to me because I like to write about spiritual stuff, right? So anyway, moving on. As I continued on working on that, I came across um I can't remember if it was a video, but then it was an article that talked about the Emmett Till case and how those three people, the girl who did it, she said, like, you think that these people got away with murder, and somebody had tracked down the lives of the two men, and every day, and all three of them, every day after they did that horrendous act to that child, not one day did they enjoy of their life. There, it was going, we know how the era was back in those days. It's segregated and all that. Let me tell you, so they had sharecropping. They had to sharecrop, and let me tell you, we were richer than them, going through sharecropping. There were black families going through sharecropping who had more money than them, than these guys. They ended up getting sick early and dying from some kind of odd cancers or something like that. And but this happened to the men, and that other heifer. I mean, they all both those men died of these cancers, and they just, like, every day was just miserable. Every day was just horrible. um I would like to think that they probably would have rather have gone to jail and did their time than to deal with the punishment that God gave them. They suffered every day. They suffered. So now let's look at this Shanquella case, and you can see, like, there's this whole street justice going on. So let's see, since they came back from their vacation and they tried to go back to living their normal lives, they can't work because eventually we weren't having it. Whoever could figure out where they worked was shutting it down. So, or they were getting fired, because I wouldn't hire them either. If somebody, one of my coworkers, if I'm the supervisor, and that how one of them heifers came back thinking they still got a job after doing what they did, if I had seen that video, or when I see that video, they're done. They're done. And I'm reporting whatever I can to the police, you know. But so we saw how they got they lost their jobs. They're pretty much they're like in hiding. They really can't go anywhere, can't do nothing. You had all this freedom before. You were enjoying life, living it up, going here, going there. You can't use your passport to go anywhere now. Um, well, I don't know. I don't know how that works. Maybe they can. But they are the most hated people. And it's because of the videos of doing the YouTube videos. Everybody knows about them. Everybody hates them. So, and it's not going to get any better. So every day is miserable for them, and I don't feel bad because they put themselves in that situation for what they did. So there's going to come a day that they're going to wish they're going to wish they never even did it. Like the moment that idea popped into their head, whatever it was, maybe they never meant to take it that far, but they're going to wish that that whole day never happened. They're going to regret if they haven't already, they're going to regret the day that they made that decision to harm one hair on Shanquella's head. I promise you. And they're gonna wish they would have wished they dealt with the regular criminal justice system than what's coming at them. So they're not getting away with anything. And what they're going to be dealing with now is worse than if they had just went to jail. I feel, and then this is just my suspicion, I feel like they've got either paid people off or they got their connections, whoever in the criminal system in North Carolina, and that's how they got off with a lot of things because it's just ridiculous. It's it's really ridiculous. It has nothing to do with a cartel either. This was just pure nastiness. And then when you look on a broader scale, right? This goes back to us not loving ourselves, meaning not loving our own selves, not loving our own kind, and it's not all our fault because of the systematic racism that's been put against our community and the divide. It's just it's never ending, right? Or it seems to be never ending, but the truth is it's coming to an end. And you're going to see it's going to get worse before it gets better, but it is coming to an end because like the what I read in Zephaniah, they the time is running out for them and they know it. So what I had to say was this morning, this all leads up to this morning. And this video is random. I didn't plan this video out. This morning I was listening and I'm in the book. I think I'm in Kings. I'm listening to the story of King David. And we're talking there was a part where it's talking about Tamar Tamar and which is so King Solomon, I mean King David had a lot of kids, of course. So this is just focused on three of his kids right now, this story. Tamar, which is this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful woman. She wore this beautiful gown, embellished or adorned with jewels to signify her virginity and her royal status, right? She's King David's daughter, one of his daughters. And she was very beautiful. They said she was so beautiful. And her brother, Ammon, lusted after her. He could not, like, he was just infatuated with his own sister in all the wrong ways, right? So, as the story goes, he lures his sister over to his home and um he SAs her, right? And it was brutal. And she's begging him to stop this whole time, to stop, please stop, don't do this, don't do this. And he went and he essayed her. And then after he was done, he couldn't stand the sight of her. And it literally said he hated her more than he had loved her before. Isn't that crazy? You destroyed her. You destroyed this woman. And now you hate her more than you had loved her? And it's just like his hate was that intense for her. So he tries to kick her out. And she says, no, please don't do this. This is even worse. What you're doing is even worse than what you just did. To do this to me and then to kick me out, you know? And he didn't care because he couldn't stand the sight of her now. So he called his guards to drag her and kick her out of his home and lock the doors. So they do. And so she tears her gown because she's now no longer a virgin. She's a destroyed woman and then she's just crying and bawling and walking and she comes across her brother Absalom, sees her. He's another handsome one. Look, David has some handsome children. He has some good looking kids. He was a good looking man. So Absalom finds his sister and he's like, what's wrong? Why are you crying? What's going on? And she tells him and he's angry because rightfully he loves his sister the correct way, right? He's angry. How dare he do this to my sister? So he takes his sister, puts her in his house, and he takes care of her. And for 2 years, this of course gets to King David. King David is angry, upset. He's crying over what happened to his daughter, and that. But this is I have a bone to pick with King Solomon. Okay, but anyway, so 2 years pass. And and Absalom decides, all right, nothing was done. There was no justice for my sister. My sister's destroyed. She could never get married. She could never know what it's like to be loved, have kids, have that life, and just be a whole woman, blah, blah, blah. He plots to, he created an event and he invited all his brothers to this event. And of course, he had to get permission from his father. So he goes to his father and he asks for permission. And his father's like, well, I don't know if all of you should go. Mind you, King David is like, all my kids don't get along, especially, well, specifically, Absalom and Ammon, right? Does Ammon doesn't want them to. He knows they're oil and water right now because of what was done to Tamar, right? So he's kind of like, he sends, red flag, red flag. He's like, I don't know why. He's like, I don't know about that. He goes, so Absalom like kind of like begs and persuades, and finally he's like, okay, all right, well, go ahead. So that's all Absalom needed. He's like, all right, it's on. He tells his guards, as soon as we get there, you know what you got to do. They took out Ammon, right? And Absalom and his whatever. So Absalom goes on a run because now he murdered his brother, right? So he goes on a run. Um, they come back. The Ammon's people come back and they're like, "Hey," and I could be saying it's wrong now. It could be Ammon or Aminon or I don't know. They come back and they're like, "Hey, um, Absalom just killed all his brothers." So King David rips his shirt, whatever, and starts like falls down bawling, like all his sons, all his kids, because one thing I will say, he loves his children, right? And then another one walks up and says, no, they're not all dead. Just Ammon is just Ammon is dead. The rest are fine. And then he sees his other sons walk in fine. It was only Ammon who was taken out. So and then he said, and Absalom is missing. So he already knows what's going on. So he cries, he's upset, but he's busy trying to deal with that. So he doesn't quickly go after Absalom because this is where I say, like, had he disciplined, and when I say discipline, honestly, I would have kicked Ammon out. I would have stripped him of his royal titles and he would have lived as a commoner outside of the palace. You're still my son, but you got no privileges because of what you did to your sister. And I think that's being nice to me. But to do nothing, nothing. 2 years passed and you did nothing. What message does that send to your daughter? She has no value to you, And so you get angry. So then street justice happened, and that's exactly what happened. Street justice. So if you look at like Tamar as like what happened to Shanquella, just Tamar. Amin is a Cabo Six, and Absalom is street justice. And unfortunately, later on, this is the other thing that the lesson to learn here about street justice is the reason why I don't I don't condone people going after them because look at what happened to Absalom. He ends up dying early because his dreads get hooked on a tree as he's trying to run away and escape, and he actually kind of like hung himself. And how crazy is that? He hung himself on a tree. But murder at the end of the day, murder is still murder, right? And so, yeah, he got back at his brother, but at what cost? To me, real justice, like when it comes from God, the only people who suffer for or pay for their crimes are the ones who did the crime. Nobody else. You know, um, there's the victim, of course, but they didn't do any crime. And unfortunately, they're not here. Or like, well, Tamar's case, she was there, but she's pretty much like a dead woman. She's like a living dead now, especially back in that era, because once a woman loses her virginity, she lost all her value. So she's like, oh, she's never gonna have kids. She's never gonna have that kind of life anymore. And then so she's pretty much like a dead woman. You don't even hear. I don't even think you hear much about her after that. You know, it's really sad. So it was so intense for me this morning. I actually woke up from that, and I went and I was checking my messages, and I came across. I was looking at some of the comments on the video for Shanquella, and I want to thank you guys all for leaving a comment and chipping in and saying something. It does help. It helps. It helps. Get that message out there. Even though we still have yet to receive justice for Shanquella, um, I believe there is a way, but it's going to take us. And I never want to say the word like, oh, it's never going to happen or we're just not going to have it. I just feel like that's so negative. So I bite my tongue on that. But in order for us to have real, true justice for Shanquella, we have to come together as a people. And when I say we have to come together as a people, I'm talking about all melanated people need to come together. Because what they do is they divide us and they pit us against each other so that we don't come together. Because when we come together, it's the scariest thing on earth for them. Because what does it say? If two or more come together, it's that was an example, just saying two. But just basically what God is saying, what Jesus is saying is if you come together in my name, there's nothing God wouldn't do for us, right? So if we're coming together, and let me just get specific about how they put us against each other. When you go back in history and you look at, uh, you could even just go back as far as the 1500s in China, and you're going to see a considerable difference in the way Chinese look back in the 1500s than how they look today. Same thing here. Same thing in Europe. Same thing in, and a lot of different countries. So the only thing that was really different amongst us is our hair texture. Some of us had more kinky hair. Some of us had straight hair. Some of us had wavy hair. Some of us had curly hair. But at one point on Turtle Island, a family consisted of what would be their dark skin, long. Some had long straight hair, some had wavy hair, some had curly hair in one family unit. We were all different shades. I think we were all yeah, yeah. So just and we see that today because if you look at the average black family, you got red bones, brown, dark skin. For me, example, I have two daughters. My oldest is brown skin. My youngest is red bone like me. Like, and that's not my mom is brown skin. You know, my grandmother is my I actually have my grandmother's complexion. So, and then my grandfather was dark skin. That's normal for us. That's not odd. That's not weird. But then they made us hate on our own family and hate ourselves because you had the dark skinned relatives looking down at the light skinned relatives and vice versa. Because what did he do? My grandmother was born into slavery and it ended when she was 5 years old. But and this is in the islands, it's not in America, this is in the Caribbean. It's so she remembers her and her mom working in the kitchen. They're very, very light skinned. She remembers her and her mom working in the kitchen and the dark skinned slaves were working in the field. She taught me that. I learned about that before any history book. I learned it from my grandmother. She told me about those stories, and she said she didn't have a whole lot of memory, but and then even just the way her mother parented her was very cold and rough and harsh because it changes a person. Like that did so much damage, you know? But don't think that they're going to get away with it. Um, in Zephaniah, it's like, I will oppress those who oppressed you. So even if God rose up the Babylonians, it doesn't mean they didn't take things above and beyond the call of duty. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that they took things too far. And it doesn't mean that God is condoning it. And it doesn't mean that God is is supporting them. So everybody has to pay for what they did, and the time is coming for people to pay. But for us to not make the same mistakes as our elders and our ancestors, is we need to start coming together, and we need to put aside our differences, because right now you're looking at, they're going to continue to try to pit us against each other, and I feel like we need to stop falling for it. We need to stop falling for it. We need to understand, why is it that every ghetto has a Chinese restaurant? And if you were to actually sit down and speak with them, and if they were to open up and speak with you, you'd learn that that's not even, they may not have wanted to be in that area. They might have wanted to be in another area that they thought would be better for their business. But certain people that be only would offer them the loan for that area, for example. Just an example. They'd only be offered the loans for that area. You understand what I'm saying? Like, you got to get to the root of the problem. And everybody's angry at everybody because it's just like that. It's just like, if you imagine just Satan going around and whispering in people's ear, "Oh, she don't like you, April, because you're light skinned. She don't like you. She says you think you're all that because you're light skinned." And, stupid. This time that girl didn't say that. And then he'll go to that girl and say, "Oh, she don't like you because you're dark skinned. She don't like that complexion. She thinks it's ugly." Yeah, this is what we have to wake up to. This is what they're doing to us. This is what they've been doing to us. And I don't feel that way about anybody. And that's stupid. I'd be hating my own mother. I love my mama. So that this is what I'm saying. Like, we need to stop falling for it. Stop falling for it. The affirmative action thing, where they're trying to pit that, basically, if you pay attention, what they're trying to do is pit Asians against blacks. That's what they're trying to do. That's a whole real goal to it. Because the only people who benefit from affirmative action, the majority of people who benefited from affirmative action was white women. And they have no issue throwing their own women under the bus. They don't care. So we want justice for Shanquella. It starts at home. It starts in how we treat each other, and how we stop falling for the BS. So that's what led to me writing. That's why I had to take a break from these videos and this case, because especially after when that verdict came out, mm, I had to take a step back. That pissed me off. But I realized, and that's why I got into finishing Forbidden, because that's how I work out my issues, as I write. And so that's how I was able to work it out for me. And what I came to the understanding I did is, we need unity, and we need to stop falling for these games. And we need to stop. I hear a lot of people like, "Oh, the Native Americans were black, and are the Black Americans." And I'm not saying that that's not true, but that doesn't mean that there weren't Native Americans who also are dark skinned, just as dark, but their hair texture is different. They're here too. And instead of trying to, and what my point is, we were all here together. We lived together, peacefully. We didn't have an issue living together. There was never an issue with us living together. And we all saw each other as family. There was no separation, because we all came from the same place. We just migrated different times. They actually found and the bones. I think the bones of a woman here in America, and she's Negroid, and it dated back, I don't know, 20,000 years. It's pretty old, and they are so determined to hide that information that they burnt down the museum that her bones were being kept in. That's how much they don't want that information to get out. But for what? So what? I was actually told by storytellers that when they came down into um, when the Native Americans migrated into Turtle Island, that there were already people here, and they look like how African American or so-called African Americans look today, just darker. And they came together. They lived together. They're intermarried. Like that was just family to them. So and then when you look up the history and you go far back in Asia, and this is recently with that guy that scientist from China who tried to find out what's the origin of Asian people or Chinese people. And he found that it goes all the way back to a tribe in Africa, the Khoisan. Actually, I put it in the book Forbidden. It goes back to that. And if you look at these people from Africa, they look Chinese. So that's where Chinese get their look from. Their eyes, their nose. Actually, I probably blend right in with that tribe. I kid you not, I would blend right in with that tribe. They have the same thing, chinky eyes, or I mean, people don't like that term, chinky eyes. That's how I grew up. I'm from Trinidad. We grew up, that's how we say it. But Asian eyes, and not everybody has a flat nose. Everybody has a different noses. But I can see where me and my family blend right in with that tribe. So I wouldn't be surprised. But we're all one family, and we need to stop fighting against each other, and we need to stop hating on each other, and we need to stop hating ourselves. If we really want to get this justice for Shanquella, then stop hating yourself, start loving each other, and let's stop falling for the games. And yes, let's keep praying for justice for Shanquella. Let's keep, making these videos. I don't want to spread anything that's not true or do any videos where it's so much speculation. I really am trying to find facts, but it's hard. I'm more looking at the fact that uh, I don't know. If I get more facts, I want to do more. But other than that, I'm going to be talking about the spiritual lessons that we can take from this and how we can grow from this and how we can prevent this from happening again and stop it, period. We need to start, I mean, when I say support, I mean just financially. Let's start buying from people who want unity, who want change, not just, you know, our money doesn't even stay in our communities. It goes right out. And that's intentional. So we got to stop that. We got to start being smarter. Educate yourself. Keep seeking knowledge. So I hope you guys are all having a wonderful and blessed Sunday. And I look forward to doing more videos. I try to do a lot of videos on the books, publishing, writing, and all the things like that. But I do have like some interviews that I'm releasing. I want to release them tomorrow. And then these videos on Shanquella. There's another video I want to do on another girl, but it's like they scrubbed the internet of this girl, and I can't find anything about her. It's really eerie. And I feel like she was sex trafficked, but I can't find anything. So, anyway, have a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.